Terminator Genisys. You son of a gun. A couple of months ago, me and a friend did a review of the first trailer that came out for Terminator Genisys. This is before this whole spoilerific second trailer where it showed that John Connor was going to be the bad guy. Now, what we did was we tried to understand or get an idea as to what the plot would be based on the trailer alone. Here I am now, 6 months later or so, giving a review on the actual film. So, what did we get right when we did this review of the trailer those months ago? Well, not much. We were really hoping that there would be a decent use of the score, and there would be those action beat moments. The score has got a couple of the thematic elements, much like you get with like the Jurassic Park or the Star Wars theme that just appears here and there as like a homage. But the music's forgettable. There's no moments of grandeur apart from one bit when Arnie jumps off the helicopter, and it's very, very cheesy, and it's almost like they didn't quite know how many da-dun-dun-da-duns to do while that sort of scene ended of the helicopter exploding. It felt quite quick and rushed and lazy in the edit. But what I'm going to mainly do is talk about the plot. I'm going to try and do this as fast as possible, and the reason why I'm only talking about the plot is if I started talking about cinematography and all of this other stuff, I'd be here forever. But essentially, the plot has got so many holes, it doesn't make sense. They start off in the future, and you're seeing the exact events that happened at the beginning of the original 80s Terminator, except you're seeing it from the Future Resistance's point of view. Them sending Kyle Reese back in time. Now, just as that's happening, and I've got to tell you now, there's some big spoilers. Obviously, I'm going to give spoilers away. Just as Kyle Reese is going back in time, John Connor gets attacked by Doctor who says something like, "You didn't think that was going to be this easy," or something along those lines. And then Kyle Reese is going back in time, but he's going into this alternate timeline based on the fact that Doctor Who attacked John Connor. So Kyle Reese, while he's going back in time, is having new memories of his youth based on this alternate dimension timeline that he's going to, of him as a child and all this other stuff. So they end up in the 80s, and they basically recreate the first film, except they kill off the Terminator pretty much straight away. He's dead, done, cameo done. And they basically decide they have to go into the future now to stop Judgment Day. But it's not Terminator 2. They decided, no, we're not going to rehash Terminator 2, because we'd already dumped the T-1000 in with the 80s. So we've kind of done a double whammy at the same time. So instead, they realise they now need to go to 2027 or 2017, I forget the date. And that's when there's this new Apple Cloud Microsoft project thing called Genisys, which is essentially a software that's going to make everything connect to each other, and there's a countdown before its big release, which is pretty lame, really. But they're in the 80s, and they need to get a time. They need to go travel through time. Now, they use the Terminator from the 80s, the old Arnie Terminator. They use the chip because apparently this rudimentary time machine they've built in the 80s can't function unless there is a Terminator chip. So they use the chip, and lo and behold, this machine starts working. And then they all travel into the future, apart from Arnie, who just waits around because he can't, because he's got this arm that's now metal. He's got no skin on it, and you can't travel through time without skin covering something, otherwise it doesn't work, which is a big flaw, which I'll come to in a minute. So they travel through time, and when they get there, they meet up with John Connor. But John Connor is actually a bad guy. He's been turned, and they realise this quite soon. So they then have to have a big fight with him. And John Connor is basically this programmer for hire that's been helping Miles Dyson create Skynet, which is all great and stuff, except Skynet's called Genisys, and I guess the facility they're doing it in is Cyberdyne. It's all rehashed. It's all, in the first one or the second one, it was this big research lab that they got from the arm and the chip that was left from the first one. In the third one, they decided it was going to be some internet military thing, and this time it's going to be some cloud thing. So every single time, it's almost like this thing's going to be created. Skynet's going to be created in one guise or another. But once again, no matter what happens, they're always going to end up making robots that look just like Arnie. Oh, God. Anyway. So John Connor's there, in this future time, but kind of more present day, and he's basically helping Miles Dyson create the Skynet program. But he's also creating a time machine, which they're having trouble making, which doesn't make any sense, because just earlier on, Arnie couldn't travel through a time machine that they built in the 80s unless they had a chip. But they still built one and made one. So why can't Skynet, personified, be able to make one in the future? That doesn't really make much sense. But anywho, so they're all in this time trying to stop this countdown clock of this Skynet Genisys thing from starting off. And it's a race against time to stop it, and there's all these fights and stuff. And at the very end, they decide they're going to try and blow it all up. And there's a couple of kind of cool moments where there's like some standoffy bits and stuff where Kyle Reese and the Terminator, or the good Arnie Terminator, want to try and like detonate everything because John Connor's kidnapped Sarah Connor. He's got a knife to her throat. And it's kind of standoffish because Arnie can't like blow the place up and kill them all in a great grandeur of sacrifice in order to, stop Skynet. Even though Sarah Connor's saying, do it. Arnie's like, I cannot hurt Sarah Connor. And even John Connor says, with a knife to her, he sort of says, I can't kill you either because I need you in order for you to like give birth to me so I could be here in the first place, sort of thing. And then a fight goes on a bit more, and it ends up where Arnie, good guy, our old OAP Arnie, grabs John Connor as this weird Terminator type thing, and they turn on the time machine. So then they get stuck in this blue bubble orb, battling around like some sort of Matrix fight, spinning and all this. And Sarah Connor's like, no, Pops, you'll die because you've got, skin exposed and all this stuff. So Arnie ends up flying out at the last minute, but the bad guy in the usual kind of last villain pose is in this blue orb getting disintegrated, going like that, and all this sort of thing, and then he blows up and dies. Everything explodes. The hero characters hide in a little bunker underneath this whole Cyberdyne place. Arnie gets thrown out into some like liquid metal type thing, and Skynet's destroyed. And at the very end, the two characters who are hidden away in this bunker underneath are like, oh, it's all over. Then all of a sudden, this T-1000 spike comes through the doorway, missing them by mere inches. And then the door opens, and it turns out that Arnie, because he got through into this pool of liquid metal, has now upgraded. His chip went into the pool of metal, and now he's a T-1000, but he still looks like Arnie. Which is cool. It's like, yay, he's not obsolete anymore. Pretty dangerous to dramatically introduce yourself with this upgrade to just stab your arm through the door. You could have just killed everybody. So after that, it ends with Kyle Reese going over to his younger self and basically telling him this message that he remembered from the beginning. So he's finishing the timeline loop, which is absolutely fine. And then the last thing you see, because there's like a little after credit sequence, is after all of this stuff exploded and Cyberdyne being destroyed, you see this little faint hologrammy flicker of Doctor Who, Matt Smith's character as Skynet. So they haven't done anything. They haven't killed him off at all. So all of that was almost for nothing, I guess. Except the main characters, believe now that they're not restricted by the rules of destiny and that they can make their own path and they can do whatever they want. And that if they did want to make love and maybe create a kid, it might not be the bad thing. Or even if they just carried on and actually just used protection, they could have a nice relationship, but their life, their fate is what you make for yourselves. There's none of this, destiny, you're stuck in this whole, you've got to be dealing with Judgment Day stuff, which is great. Except it was all for nothing in a way, because Skynet's still alive. And that's pretty much the review in terms of the plot itself. The actual nitty-gritty things of the story, I guess you could say it's a nice nostalgia trip, but nothing more. Now, I have got another video which is explaining the ending, as well as all of the more
plotty, twisty, turny elements and a load of plot holes. So have a look at that. And there's also another video where they've completely ripped off, blatantly stolen an idea I had for a sequel to Terminator Salvation that I'd actually put in a podcast 6 years ago. And the result of Terminator Genisys is pretty much exactly the same plot. So check that one out as well. Yeah, thank you for watching and check out my channel. Cheers!